All right, shalom, shalom. Before I begin this lesson, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Ruach HaKodesh. I'd like to say double honors to my teachers, the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone, the men whom I've learned this truth from. And shalom and salutations to the elect that's out there preaching this word in truth and sincerity. I'm the brother Shaquat, and I'm one of the brothers from the branch of Great Millstone, Montreal, back with another lesson. And this lesson that I'll be getting into today is going to be focusing on the inward man, right? Because, that's the most important thing in this truth, right? Being in this ministry, right? And the Lord is, that's how the Lord views us, man. The Lord is not viewing us through the outward man. Matter of fact, let me start there. Yep. This is the book of 1 Samuel, and I'm going to start at verse 4. And it says, "And Samuel did that which Yahweh spake, and came to Bethlehem. And the elders of the town trembled at his coming and said, Comest thou peaceably?" Right? And this was what? This was when Samuel was going to anoint the next king of Israel, which was what? Which was going to be King David, right? It says, and this also goes to show you that when the prophets are on the scene, um, it's not always a good thing. It's not a good thing. You know why? Because prophets being on the scene means that there's something getting ready to come. Some evil or so on and so forth, right? Because why what does the name prophet means? It means to say something before it happens, man. It's to prophesy, right? To foretell an event, and that's what the prophets are put on the scene for. So this is why when the prophets came around, it's like, yo, what's up? What's going on, all right? And that's why they posed that question. They asked if Samuel was coming peaceably, all right? And he said, "Peaceably I am come." Right. Also in the book of Amos, it says, um, roughly paraphrasing, it says, um, when the prudent shall keep silence in that time, for it is an evil time. So when those times that the prudent, which are the prophets, when they're kept silent, meaning those evil times are there, right? So there's no need for them to prophesy, right? Further proving that prophets are set on the scene to prophesy and to foretell things before they happen, right? And that's why they're to be feared. And that's why your spiritual antenna should be up, right? When the prophet is in your proximity or is in your midst, right? Because there's a reason for that. It's not just a random act, all right? In verse 5, and he said, "Peaceably I am come to sacrifice unto the Lord. Sanctify yourselves, and come with me to the sacrifice." And he sanctified Jesse and his sons and called them to the sacrifice. And it came to pass, when they were come, that he looked on Eliab, and said, "Surely the Lord's anointed is before him." Right? Why did he say that? Right? Because Eliab, which was one of King David's brothers, was most likely a man of stature, a man that had the outward appearance of the next king or of a king. Right? He had the physique, the beard, um, comely, uh, comely look about him. Right? Most likely tall, of a high stature. When Samuel saw him, he's like, "Yo, surely this is the one that the Lord is going to make king of Israel. Surely this is him." But let's see the Lord's response. Verse 7. But the Lord said unto Samuel, "Look not on his countenance or on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart." Right? So that's how the Lord perceives man. Right? The Lord's looking at the heart. In the Hebrew, that word heart is lab, and it could be also synonymous with the inward man. Right? So that inward man is what the Lord is looking at, and since that's what the Lord is looking at, shouldn't that be what we're trying, or what we should try to perfect, right? And not the outward appearance, you know. And I'm speaking to myself first and foremost, right? So being in this truth, we come to this knowledge. You come to understand that, yo, the Lord. You come to understand the Lord's likes and don't likes, right? You know, because in the world we didn't know that. In the world we were in the world, man, in darkness, gross darkness. But now being in this truth, light has been shed on, um, the truth, especially the truth about Yahweh Shemashai, right? And the truth about Yahweh Shemashai is that He doesn't see people in a carnal, from a carnal standpoint. He sees people um, in the spirit, man. You know, in the inward man, right? So let's get this. Insane. This is Salakia. Whited. Salakia within. Yep, here we go. This is Matthew 23 and verse. I'm gonna start at 24. It says, "Ye blind guides, which strain out a gnat and swallow a camel. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye make clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they're full of extortion and excess." Right. So the wicked scribes and Pharisees that Yahweh was cursing out, they were worried about the wrong thing. They were worried about appearing righteously on the outwardly, and that's what doing certain things to make it seem like, or to appear to be righteous. All right. Um, in their case, what they would appear to be the perfect in the law, or perfect in terms of um, giving tithes and so on and so forth, right? But their heart wasn't pure, man. Their heart wasn't right, or it wasn't clean, right? And that's why Yahushua was cursing them out. Verse 26, "Thou blind Pharisee, cleanse first that which is within the cup and the platter, that the outside of them may be clean also." So once again, Yahushua is making an emphasis on the inward man, and how that's more important than appearing righteous, because with the inward man, you're also sincere, man. You're not doing anything because you don't want to be, you don't want to be seen a particular, or you want to be seen a particular way, man. You're just doing it out of sincerity of heart, all right? And that's what the Lord is most pleased with. That's why He speaks about in Psalms. Um, He says, "A contrite and a broken spirit, thou will not despise." You know. It says, because there's no guile in that spirit. And that's why the parable of the two men that went into the temple, the one a Pharisee and the other one a publican, who was justified, the publican, man, because he was honest and sincere about himself, man. His heart was right, you know. Although he was probably, he was doing certain things out often, like outwardly, but his heart was pure. And that's why Yahushua also, or the scriptures also speak about the harlots and so on, make it to the kingdom of heaven before some of the Pharisees, when Yahushua said that, I believe. Why? Because some of them were sincere. They were honest about with themselves, man. But and their inward was clean in the eyes of Yahweh Shemashai. They had a sincere mind, man. And that's how we're to be. Verse 27, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye are like unto whitest sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead man's bones and of uncleanness. Even so, you also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within you are full of hypocrisy and iniquity," man. So that's how we're not to be, So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. In closing, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bashim Shai, Bashim Chakadash. Once again, the belongings to my teachers, the apostles, the bishops, and elders of Great Millstone. Until next time, Shalom.